Hi everyone, I'm here today with a video showing you a few different ways that I've used the Tim Holtz Distress Markers. I got my order in over the weekend and I couldn't wait to play along. I didn't have much time though because it was Easter weekend and we had a lot of stuff going on, so I just couldn't, I had to play with them. So I love them. I got the entire set, so I have all these colors, and what's really cool is I have a lot of colors in the markers that I don't have in the ink pad, so I was introduced to new colors. So I'm going to show you today how I made this card. The background and the butterflies both were made using the Tim Holtz Distress Markers, so I'm going to show you how I made that. I'm going to be using this stamp set from Sweet Stamp Shop. This is a design team set, so if you got the stamp set, it would be, cute, and it would have the images printed on there. But it's got some really cute bugs on there, and I never thought I would say cute bugs in the same sentence. But it's got a ladybug and a bumblebee and this adorable caterpillar and fun sentiments, and I'm going to be using the butterfly from this set, and it's gorgeous and it has a lot of detail. Now before I start coloring with them, let me tell you a little bit about the marker itself. They have two tips. They have a brush tip and a fine tip. And there's the brush tip, an example of that. And I really like the brush tip. It's very firm, which I like, and the fine tip is wonderful. It's good for journaling and writing and so forth. And I have found no problems with it with these markers at all, with either tip. I like the brush tip on this marker. It seems a little bit more firm than, say, a Copic, which is great for me because I can get up to the edge of an image and stay in the lines, basically. Now, the difference between the Distress ink and the Copics is obviously the Distress ink will react with water and Copics don't. And with Copics, you can do a lot of blending and shading, and I believe with Distress inks, you cannot do that with the markers, or I haven't been able to yet, unless I incorporate some water in there. So those are the differences that I have found so far between the two. Alright, so I'm going to start with a darker color. I just chose to go with some blues, so I believe this is Faded Jeans, and I'm just kind of putting that on the inside there. And then I'm going to color the rest of the butterfly with the Tumbled Glass. And again, there's not much blending going on here because I'm not going to be using any water for this image. So basically, it's basically however you want to do. It's very freeing when you're coloring. So I just added in some of the darker color, and you can't contaminate Distress ink markers with each other, so that's cool because you can color over with darker colors and lighter colors and not contaminate that tip. And I topped the top of the butterfly off with some stickles for my finished card to give it a little extra shine there. Okay, here I wanted to quickly show you how I made that background using the Distress markers. So I've grabbed my craft sheet that I always use as a base for my crafting. They're absolutely wonderful. If you don't have one, I strongly encourage you to get one. They're super easy to clean up, and they're pretty inexpensive, but if you don't have one, you can use an acrylic block for this. I'm just scribbling some with the brush side of the marker down onto my craft sheet, some colors that I like personally. And then I'm going to spritz it with some water. You can use Perfect Pearls here too if you want. I'm just going to use some water. And I've cut a strip of watercolor paper, and I'm just going to press it directly into the ink. And I'm just going to hold it down for a few minutes so the water has a chance to pick up all of that ink. And then when you lift it, you're going to get something like this. And when it dries, it'll look like that, basically. I also spread out the ink a little bit more and didn't hold the paper down as long in the water, and I got that really cool striped look. And you can also swirl your paper around in the water and get a swirl look. Okay, now I want to show you how I stamped this beautiful image from Hero Arts. It's called Garden Bouquet. And this technique is just using your Distress markers directly onto your stamp. You can do it on clear, rubber, whatever. So here I'm just grabbing a bunch of different colors, and I'm just going to start coloring in the image. Again, you cannot contaminate the Distress ink, so when you go over a color with another color, when you just scribble off to the side on your mat or your acrylic block or whatever, it's going to remove any of the ink from the other marker and it'll return to the true color. So it's pretty cool. So here I'm going to be trying to get in 3 different shades of green in the stems. And then I'll just be using various different colors directly onto the stamp to see what happens. Now, every time I do it, it's going to be different because I use different colors, and the key to this technique is just to make sure that you have your complete stamped image covered with some form of color. Okay, I kind of skipped over to the end here. I'm just applying the last few colors from the markers onto the stamp. As you can see, I'm squiggling off to the side to remove any of that unwanted color from my marker. I love that you cannot contaminate these markers, let me just tell you. And then I'm going to give it a nice puff with my breath. It just needs a little bit of moisture. And I'm going to apply some pretty firm pressure down on my cardstock. This is Nino Solar White cardstock. Just want to apply firm, even pressure to get a nice stamped image. And when you lift it, you'll be surprised by all the colors and all the beautifulness that you created by those markers. And I love how all the different shades of green there. I could not get this effect with Copics because I'm not that good with Copics. So the Distress markers make it pretty easy. And then I decided, I wonder what would happen if I just squirted some water on that stamp without adding any more color. What would happen? So I gave it a whirl, a couple of spritzes, and look how pretty that is. So I got two stamps, different images from the same stamp with no extra color. Pretty cool. Okay, I saw this technique over on Julie Ebersol's blog. She did it with memento markers, so I said, surely you can do it with distress inks. So I'm going to take a sentiment and I'm going to create kind of a two-toned or a pattern within the sentiment. So I'm going to take two markers. You want to have a lighter and darker marker. And I'm going to be using this stamp set from Hero Arts. All of my supplies and things that I've used in this video are going to be linked up on my blog. And you want to color the image. And I'm using the side of my marker again. I'm not using the tip, I'm using the brush side. And this is a milled lavender color. It's a pretty color, but when you color on the clear stamp, you don't see any color go down. So I wanted to stamp it off the paper to make sure it was going to show up. So it is. So you're just going to cover the entire stamp with your lighter color, and then you're going to take your darker color. And I think I decided to go with Weatherwood here. I want to do a different color family other than purple. And you're just going to take your brush tip and you're just going to dab it all over your sentiment. Little dabs. And then you huff it, and then you stamp. And again, that huffing just gives it, just re-moisturizes the ink, and then you get that really pretty two-tone look. I'm going to do it one more time because I did go a little fast. I think I'm going to do yellow and orange here. So I'm grabbing some mustard seed, again light color first, then dark. I'm coloring my stamped image, and then I'm going to take that spice marmalade, and I'm going to take the brush tip, and I'm just going to kind of dab it all over the sentiment. And this time I forgot to huff, but it still worked just fine. And you get a really pretty look. And here's a close-up of it. I just think it's really something, it's something fun and a little extra added to your sentiment. Okay, here I'm going to show you how to watercolor with the Distress markers, and I'm going to use the rose from this Sweet Stamp Shop set called Hello Beautiful. All the supplies will be linked up on my blog. Now I'm going to heat emboss these roses, and I'm going to do it without having to use black embossing powder. VersaFine is a pigment ink, so it stays wet longer. So I'm just going to stamp these two roses in VersaFine pigment ink, which I use for the Distress inks because it does not react to water, so it won't smear. And I'm just going to put some embossing powder over it right after I stamp it while it's still wet, and then I'm going to heat set it. This omits you having to use the black embossing powder and the Versamark pad. I'm going to be using this fine tip from the 3-pack Hero Arts water brush set that I got from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just putting down 3 colors, any colors that you want. I'm using mustard seed, wild honey, and spice marmalade. And I'm just adding it. I think I started with the darker color in the middle, and then I start to pick up the yellow and put it around the edge, and then it looks like I'm mixing the mustard seed and the orange together to create my own color. Looks like I wanted a little bit more orange, so I'm adding more orange. It's however you want to paint. It's totally freeing. There is no wrong way to do it. It's whatever your personal style is. And when you cut that out, when it dries, of course, and you cut it out, it's really quite pretty. I'm going to color the other flower. I'm going to add some red and purple. So I've grabbed some Fire Brick and Dusty Concord, and I'm going to go in with a few minutes with some Barn Door. I wanted more of a brighter red. And I always tend to start with I wanted my bright red in the middle, but it wasn't as bright as I wanted it, so I'm going to add some Barn Door here. and I'm just water painting it on. Those water brush pens, they have a barrel in the pen, and when you squeeze it, it releases the water. So as I'm painting it, I'm squeezing at the same time to get some water out. So here I'm adding some purple, and it looks like I'm bringing it around to the side to add in the colors on the outside edge. And then I'm blending it with the water at the end, and then you get a really pretty look. And because that image is heat embossed, it's shiny, and I like the look of that. Sorry I went off camera here. Hope you can tell. Now the last thing I want to show you, if you're still hanging with me, is I'm going to create a background using this background stamp with the Distress Markers. This background stamp is from Market Street Stamp. It's called A Bit of Burlap, and I love it. It's so pretty and cool. And I'm just taking some markers that I personally like, and I'm just coloring using the side of my brush directly onto the stamp. I'm trying to create a dark to light gradient. That's what's happening in my mind here. And I'm using the Fiskars stamp press, which I really like. It's great for large stamps and small stamps, and it's great for placement because of those foam springs. You can line them up wherever you want them to be, or right over your card. So I'm going to huff on it, and then I'm just going to stamp it in that little blank area that I have left on my cardstock here, giving it some firm pressure. And then I've got this background here. I wanted to see what it would look like blending. Now this isn't watercolor paper, this is Nina Solar white cardstock. So I'm just grabbed one of my water brush pens and I'm blending all the ink together. So after it dried, I went ahead and cut it out, and I thought I would show you the water flicking technique that I've done in the past. So I'm just going to scribble some spice marmalade onto my craft sheet and squirt some water down. I'm just going to get a paintbrush and soak that paintbrush up with the water and with the ink. And I'm just going to take my finger and that paintbrush and I'm just going to flick it. Just hitting that paintbrush and it flicks the water directly onto the cardstock. Now if you don't have Mr. Huey's or Glimmer Mists or whatever mists are out there, you can make your own with Distress inks and with Distress markers just by doing it this way. Super fun. So thank you guys so much for watching if you've hung in with me this long. This is probably the longest video I've ever done, and I hate talking in my videos. So if you guys stuck with me to the end, thanks so much. And I am definitely not an expert with these markers. I've only used them for about 2 hours. So whatever you guys create, please show me because I would love to learn more things that we can do with these markers. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.